Dragons: The Nine Realms Season 3 came out on the 18th of August 2022, and while the seasons have been getting progressively better in my opinion, that doesn't mean they're necessarily good. However, in saying that, I have nothing but complete respect for everyone who's worked on it. This video is a genuine critique and I'm not trying to bash on the show. I won't be covering Season 1 and 2 for the most part, and you can find some much more in-depth reviews down below. So let's talk about the 7 episodes in Season 3, the good and the bad, and how DreamWorks managed to disappoint almost the entirety of the How to Train Your Dragon community. The Nine Realms so far has had problems with its story, characters, and visual effects. Coming from a large studio like DreamWorks, the show is expected to be of a high quality, especially considering the successes of Race to the Edge and its 6 seasons. Currently, The Nine Realms is expected to have an additional 6 seasons, an ambitious goal, as well as a game set to release in 2 weeks' time. Let me know if you want me to play that, by the way. So let's start by taking a look at episode 1 of Season 3. Fire Escape launches us straight into the action with Tom testing out version 6 of the Dragon Armor. This already sparks an issue because they're relying too heavily on the original franchise, even though the show is set 1300 years after the events of the movies. The target audience I feel particularly leans towards children this season, and they even go so far as to make the same joke twice with someone's shoe being on fire. In all fairness, I did like D'Angelo's voice clip of him saying,
"Are you crazy? Wait, I'm just gonna record this so I can play it back on perpetual loop. Are you crazy?"
The plot revolves around the 4 kids wanting to use a monstrous nightmare to test out the new fire suits Alex has made, although no explanation is given to us as to how or with what they were made. Unfortunately, the Rise clearly didn't think this through for Tom, because they haven't allowed him the thought of the fire suit completely melting as he dies testing it. It's small things like this that really bring the show down over time. Myself and Audrey actually go into more depth about the best characters so far in the show in a video on my channel if you'd like to watch that. I also really don't understand who Tom thought he was going to run into down here either.
I should bring the spearhead with me just in case I run into the person who dropped it.
And there's a lot of convenience throughout the show, convenience added to push the story forward. If a story is well written and well thought out to its conclusion, there should be nothing overly convenient about it. Events should surprise the characters and the audience, and plot devices definitely shouldn't be coming out of nowhere. On a similar note, you should not be needing to change the events of previous seasons of the same show so that the current one makes sense. As I discussed in the best characters video, Alex tends to have the best depth. She's funny, relatable, and actually has skepticism about what they're doing by putting together 3 brain cells of thought. I feel like a lot more care needs to go into quality control. This monstrous nightmare is missing its horns for an incredibly long shot. As RaisorBlade puts it,
in 3D animation, that's a model. You don't mess with the model unless you're trying to do something specific.
Someone would have had to have removed it entirely for some reason. And to continue on with the idea of care, it is embarrassing how often the audio doesn't line up with the animation.
The audio is out of sync.
Or anything that looked like a unicorn.
A unicorn? Don't be crazy.
Me crazy? You're the one with a hatchet, dude. You're like a couple years older than me, tops. And second, you've been looking for a lightning bird.
DreamWorks, I will do the audio syncing for a quarter of minimum wage. It is again the small things that are adding up and making this show worse off. Episode 2 does show some more emotions coming through, particularly from June after she and her mother have a disagreement. But again, it's a shame that we don't see more of it and it's not referenced again. I'm going to compare the Nine Realms to Race to the Edge here. I really don't understand why the Nine Realms can't have anyone or anything die. Race to the Edge is rated TV Y7FV and the Nine Realms TVG, which is actually a higher rating. It is possible that the higher rating does have something to do with the high proportion of non-heterosexual relationships shown, but at the same time, this also gives them the opportunity and the freedom to build consequences that weren't possible in Race to the Edge. And yet, not only do they not have the Fault Ripper die, despite clearly being a reference to the Red Death from the first movie, but they're also way too casual with scenes where characters should be dying. Just take a look at how fast these rocks are moving. And to carry on with people getting hurt, in this episode, but just the season overall really, they're shown avoiding fire, even though it's very clearly shown at the end of episode 1 that the suits protect them from that. The characters contradict themselves so much it hurts. You can't say that you'll never hurt another dragon again and then proceed to harm several more in the same episode and then the rest of the season.
And the others look...
I've seen opinions on the ships range from I don't care because why should I when the show is this bad, to Tom and June, to Tom and Alex. But I've never heard anyone say that Alex and D'Angelo should be a thing. I really don't understand why they're being pushed so much. Nobody is asking for this, and realistically everyone could just be friends too. And then maybe in a later season they could listen to the fans and do whatever. Lastly, for this episode, I do not believe for a second that this was intentionally written to be so meta, but the line
Who wants to live in the real world anyway?
is incredible. Episode 3, believe it or not, may just be the best episode of this season. However, it is of course not without its own glaring issues. The music near the beginning of this episode was quite impressive, and I think it's a much better representation of what the original franchise was capable of. I do like the idea that Carla and Hazel are struggling a little with not having Alex in the house as she spends more time with her friends, but like almost every other plot point in the show so far, it is introduced and resolved way too quickly. If you've seen the show, you'll know that almost everything gets resolved within the same episode it was introduced in, which makes it feel incredibly rushed and insignificant. And yes, Race to the Edge and lots of other kids shows do this too, I get it, but not usually ever with something so important. A lot of the decisions made in this episode don't make a whole lot of sense either, such as Carla and Hazel not hearing June and Alex who are sitting right under them, but I'll let that slide. Or why on earth they wouldn't just take the fireworm back in Alex's bag since it's clearly fireproof, somehow, instead of the super obvious fishbowl. And when someone says out loud that the fireworm is hot,
Whoa, yikes.
don't keep touching it. And some other logical things, like putting fireworms in a flammable basket, I really don't understand these kids' thinking. Anything flammable should be on fire before these things even come into contact with it. And how did no one see Feathers pick up this stupid fishbowl and carry it in front of everyone? And while June and Alex are discussing how bad it is for the fireworm to be away from its swarm, not only are they not running to save its life, but just standing there wasting time as they talk. The ending of this episode does have some highlights. Alex and June give Buzzsaw nightmares.
Scientists are smarter than I thought. Huh? Did you see that? See what?
The quality visuals that we'd expect from DreamWorks were seen with the reflection in Alex's glasses, and also Alex being really sweet to her parents. I think the conflict between Alex and her mum, should they continue it, could be a really good arc over multiple seasons. Again though, this episode lacks consequences for the fireworm. Instead of letting the dragon die and having it be a major plot point of development for the characters, they save it and it manages to have an insanely fast recovery time considering the fact that it was practically dead just a second ago. In Race to the Edge, they weren't nearly as afraid of letting dragons die. This sheep coming back from the previous seasons I think is pretty hilarious in all honesty, but as soon as I saw D'Angelo help it, I knew what the rest of the episode was going to be. It was going to revolve around Tim being overly cocky and not listening to others, which, I'll remind you, is an arc he's already had, failing to cooperate with his team and flying solo without taking others' opinions into account. This problem of making characters undergo arcs that they've already had was actually a problem in the first episode of season 3 with the monstrous nightmare, when the other kids said Tom was using it and not treating it correctly.
He's not a tool you can feed fish to and then use. He's an emotional being who's just trying to survive and live his life.
I'll try to stick to the good things for now. Alex again is carrying this show so hard she's going to need to see a chiropractor.
Someone's a ray of sunshine today. What's that like?
And it could just be me, but her humour is perfect. The sarcastic comments and actual thoughts she has before making decisions easily makes her one of the most likeable characters. Shared in my opinion is Audrie.
She's like the only redeeming aspect of this show.
I have to say, one of the best parts of this episode was Alex saying,
Cowboy sound!
The reference to boulders turning around was good, but again I think it's cheap considering it was just stolen from Race to the Edge.
Guys, since when do boulders turn around?
So, D'Angelo completely ignoring Plowhorn and having zero respect for her is pretty appalling. The Quaken for some reason only did the shockwave once, which I thought was incredibly strange, especially considering they just took all of her offspring. And it took the Quaken quite a few seconds to even do it, very unlike in Race to the Edge. I know I was praising the comedy just early in this exact episode, but sometimes it just comes up in the wrong place, and it often leads to forcing all the tension that built up to vanish because they didn't lean hard enough into it being intense. If they want the Gronkles to go back to the Fire Realm, and they seemed interested in eating the crystals, why wouldn't you just take the crystals with you? You don't have to lead them there with rocks. It makes no sense. And again, there are inconsistencies with the world for the sake of convenience. The mist last time disappeared almost instantly, but now all of a sudden it sticks around. How kind. If you've seen the episode, you'll know that this entire thing was just a science lesson on the fact that reptiles don't digest food for 24 to 48 hours, and that's why the eggs are fine, even though they would have clearly been destroyed by the Grunkle's teeth. It again makes no sense. Plus, Grunkles have been shown time and time again eating rocks and then immediately belching lava. Nothing in this show actually matters because nothing bad can ever happen. And also, if you're going to educate your audience on reptile digestion facts, at least set yourself straight with how toxic sulfur is. They actually have someone say,
Ugh. Oh man, so sulfury.
And then mention nothing else about it. Sulfur poison can and will kill you. This episode is unfortunately full to the brim with logical problems from the beginning. The group is incredibly quick to dismiss Eugene even though he could utterly ruin all of them. Junior's being ridiculous for challenging him, and I'm just saying that if anyone was going to be lactose intolerant, of course it was going to be this guy.
I'm lactose intolerant.
Hi, sisters!
I do appreciate that they're self-aware with this joke and making Eugene chill out using woo.
Chill him out, Woo.
Okay, I walked into that one.
And this transition in particular is incredibly clean. It was great to see a hobgobbler again, but I honestly preferred the scene in the trailer because in my head there was at least some tension. And some of you might have seen it on my Twitter, but my friend made a note on this script while helping me. And that's all the good stuff. They do an almost word-for-word rip from Race the Edge when Snotlout / Eugene are picking a dragon.
Too small, too slow, too heavy.
Nah, too small. That one's too long. That one's... Ugh. What am I even looking at?
All the times people landed really hard I can forgive. However, in saying that, this razor whip should have killed him right there and then. Their tails are strong enough to cut through trees and rocks, so why isn't he sliced in half? And while I don't think this one had the intention of killing him particularly, it doesn't make any sense that they can just stop their tails from being sharp. These dragons named flamethrowers are sort of a disgrace. Why don't we just call all dragons flamethrowers? During a call I had with Audrie and RaisorBlade suggested
Fire jackals because they operate like jackals.
which I think is much more fitting for how they behave, and also something not so generic. He did also seem very adamant.
I think that the flamethrower dragons are actually better rendered.
Fire jackals.
I never liked the design
Fire
of...
jackals.
I never liked...
Fire jackals.
I get it! I never liked the design! Fucking fire jackal!
I understand June's phobia in this episode, but I feel like the extent of it wasn't shown as much as it appears to truly be in this episode from the last season. The fear of death is the best motivation.
Webmaster!
And this dragon, I said it was a chameleon on steroids.
His dragon looks like Randall from Monsters, Inc.
Two logical things here. Those dragons are just stuck there forever now and I guess they die, so much for not hurting another dragon. The second being the line,
Tighten up! Don't give them another inch!
what sense does that make? Tightening up would be giving them another inch. And how else better to finish this episode than with more ripping from Race to the Edge? The name Webmaster is the most blatant ripoff of Shadow Master, and it really rubs me the wrong way once again with how little DreamWorks cares. The beginning of episode 6 is quite confusing. The kids are attempting to destroy the one thing that's kept them alive, and the wording from the writers for this part genuinely makes it sound like they're going to create lightning by using heat somehow and then forge a sword.
Or, you know, a lightning sword sounds good.
All we need is heat.
RaisorBlade also correctly points out,
He spends this whole episode trying to make a sword so he can fight dragons, and then in the next episode he's like, we can't hurt dragons. Like, what's the sword for then? Also, that dragon's racist.
the only reason they're saving this dragon is so they can use it for the sword. So what was the point of episode 1 and having an arc where they can't use the dragons? And I'm just gonna say now, I totally called that this was going to be the stupidest idea using a thermometer from my season 9 trailer review. Looks like a thermometer, so it's probably sick. How is this ever going to work on a dragon that spews lava? And yeah,
Whoa, he's hot.
no crap it's hot. The entire plot of this episode revolves around getting the magma breather up to the infirmary so they can check on it, because there's no electrical outlets in the crystal realm.
Great idea. We'll just plug the machine into... Oh wait, the Dragon Realm doesn't have power outlets.
Fair enough, right? Wrong! You're telling me that Icarus, which has billions of dollars in funding behind it, has an ultrasound, because you need that when you're looking at a fissure in the ground, but not a portable generator or a car battery? I get that they need a plot, but could they at least make it a little bit more believable? Like what we said in the best character video, Alex's humor is right on point.
I'm sure they're fine.
She really keeps this show alive, especially with how she half misses the point of keeping Eugene out of the operation and then just fully embraces it with the perfect amount of sass and sarcasm.
You two fly up and scout the surface instead.
Like, recon?
Actually, I just disabled the security systems, so Eugene doesn't need to... Oh, sorry. I'm so good at my job.
The funnily stupid line she has later on saying the butter's unsalted was pretty hilarious too.
Don't worry, it's unsalted.
I did have to laugh when the kids were asking each other if they thought the magma breather could fly, but then the dragons in the background were just like, let's find out, and pushed it off a cliff. And while I thought it was super predictable that one of these two was going to fall over, having D'Angelo slip as well was a nice touch.
Yeah, up top.
Nice one, Colors.
One of my favourite logical issues is when D'Angelo explains he's going to have to reach into the dragon's mouth and pull out the blockage. What makes you think any of this is a good idea? This dragon has clearly shown in the past that it hates you. Hell, just a few minutes ago you used that fact to lure it to where you wanted. But even then, how are you going to explain to your parents, or to anyone for that matter, the reason you're bleeding out and missing both your arms is because a dragon ate them when you were How are you going to that the reason you're bleeding out that the reason you're bleeding out and missing both your arms is because a dragon ate them when you stupidly stuck them in its mouth? Please think for like 2 seconds. Alex was clearly burnt when she was only just touching the thermometer, so D'Angelo's skin is actually going to melt away if he puts his arms down this thing's throat. I quite liked Eugene in this episode. He's much more likable considering how unfairly the main protagonists have treated him, and he managed to absolutely play Buzzsaw without completely losing his nerve. The whole therapy session he gave is honestly one of my favourite parts of this entire season, if not the entire show so far, which is why the entire scene has almost no importance or bearing over anything in the story, and it could have been totally removed without any change to the overarching narrative. And why did these dragons keep being so dumb? Keep your stupid heads down. So remember how at the beginning of this episode I said that they wanted to make a sword? Yeah, neither did the writers. This right here at the very end of the episode is the only other time that's mentioned since the start, and they still couldn't figure out how lightning works. I genuinely believe that the biggest issue I have with this episode is not at all the fault of the writers, but more what they've been forced to produce by some higher up. The amount of potential this had with a genuinely threatening dragon design, and if they had allowed the issue to bleed into another season so it actually felt like more of a threat. However, as you can tell, that's not what actually happened. Instead, we start with more readjusting of the Fault Ripper's death, so you can only imagine who's coming back to life to fight off the Sky Torture at the end of the episode. Do you get it yet? It's the two alphas from the second movie. And this could just be me, but this shield on the wall of Olivia and Tom's dome is looking a little like something else I might have seen somewhere. My friend told me to give you all nightmares, so please look at the following frames. And why is Thunder jittering so much in his animation cycle? The fact that they go looking for the Fault Ripper, that they all watch pretty much die and have all since accepted to be dead is beyond reasoning. I've spoken a lot about some logical errors that just don't make a whole lot of sense for our characters. And thankfully there's more. Excluding the issue that they're looking for a dragon they all thought was 100% dead, there's the fact that Sledkin just doesn't attend a meeting because she doesn't want to. That seems like a really quick way to get yourself fired in my opinion. The attack of this dragon is so beyond useless. I mean sure, it looks kinda cool, but in what world would this ever make sense? And don't say because it's a kids show, because they managed it with 39 different species of dragons in the movies just fine. Why are not 1, but 2 children at this facility carrying around respirators for poisonous gas? And then Tom says, "Watch the gas!" As if that wasn't apparent enough already with the respirators you're both carrying around with you, and you're now wearing. Except for the dragons, because why wouldn't the dragons be immune to poison? Everyone has clearly forgotten the Fault Ripper is meant to be blind, because all of a sudden it's doing things that would only be possible with sight, which is again, just convenient. All the dragons understand English at a more fluent level than I do, and that's really something coming from a native speaker. And once they finally get the Sky Torture cornered and force it back into the Fire Realm, they make it a nice little path for it to easily come back through. But they blocked it off with rocks. Look at it! This thing is massive and broke through this for crying out loud. And you just know we're never gonna hear about this dragon until like season 5 or 6 when they need it for something else. This dragon is actually just one of the tractors from Cars, I swear, it just moves.
That's Frank.
Oh no, guys, look, we have to stop this big dragon because it's not natural with the Fire Realm dragons being in the Crystal Realm. Do they not understand that they're actually just stopping nature by not letting this carry out? These Fire Realm dragons are clearly superior and you need to let them invade the Crystal Realm if you're so worried about the natural path of everything. Also, why is this dragon even invading the Crystal Realm? What does it not have in the Fire Realm? What is the motive of the central antagonist for the finale of the season? These are questions I should not have zero answers to. Before they actually show off the Sky Torture, they try and build up some tension by exclaiming the number of dragons that are being displaced by its invasion. But it's hindered by, I can only presume, their budget. Just 6 dragons move across the screen. Honestly, I'd kinda wish they just left that part out entirely, because it drains away from the idea that any of this actually matters. If they lose, 6 dragons get displaced. Big deal. And if they win, then the 6 dragons get to keep their home. Nothing matters because nothing can be built up properly with the amount of time being given to them, and in conjunction with their budget. Or lack of. I do genuinely only want the best for this show, and for anyone who is already finding entertainment in it, I'm glad you can. And I do think the seasons have been improving, but the same flaws just keep holding them back. In my opinion, the Nine Realms does not hold up or truly show off what this franchise is capable of. A captivating story, deep and thought-provoking characters, beautiful music, and stunning VFX. Audrie Greywind and RaisorBlade are both making videos on Season 3 if they haven't already, and I'll link their channels and their videos down below once they get released. The only thing to look forward to next is Season 4, where by the looks of it, we'll be taking a deep dive into the Ice Realm, or perhaps the game coming out on the 23rd. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.